Fam, good morning. What is going on? It is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Can I get a roll tide inside the comment box? I appreciate you guys being here. Today is Monday. Today is November 4th. Today on the show, the latest AP Top 25 rankings. We're going to talk about the playoff watch. We're going to talk about the college football rankings, give you a little bit of a preview of what to anticipate for Tuesday. Remember, Tuesday night is the first college football ranking show on ESPN. We'll be discussing that, kind of give a little bit of a preview as well. The undefeated teams, we'll look at some of the undefeated teams. We'll look at the SEC and the chaos that is taking place right now in the SEC. We're going to talk about Alabama basketball as they get ready to have their first game of the night. Can't wait to see the basketball team in action. We're going to play Monday morning quarterback. I'll take your calls after my segment, and then we'll dive into the press conferences, which will start at 11:30 a.m. Standard Time. And that is Central, of course. And you have Nick Sheridan, Kane Womack, and Coach Kalen DeBoer back to back to back. I appreciate everybody up in the house. I hope you had an amazing weekend. I hope you got that extra hour of sleep. And if you had to work an extra hour, hey, that's an extra hour of a little bit of payday, right? So appreciate you guys being here. And look, when we look to the AP rankings, which is our first topic, clearly this will be the last time we talk about the AP rankings, because from then on, we'll just be talking about the college football playoff rankings. Alabama clearly needed teams to start losing. We've talked about that. They needed some help. That's fine. And we know that it's going to be hard for the playoff committee to leave a 10-2 Alabama team out of the playoffs. Got to win the games, right? Got to win the games on your schedule. We know that. These are all playoff elimination type games for Alabama moving forward. Hey, Mario Gates out the gate. Let's go. Let's start the show off right. LSU Hay Week, man. That's what's up. Mario coming in big. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for supporting the show on Bama Football on YouTube. And what happened was, just like Alabama needed help, you had teams starting to lose. You start in the SEC, where Texas A&M lost to South Carolina. And one thing that I'm going to talk about as we move forward is, man, the parity in the SEC. There's nothing like the SEC. Like the teams that are in the Big 12, the teams that are in the ACC, they are not playing the same type of competition. Same thing even for the Big 10. We are going to look under the hood at Indiana, who is undefeated, and maybe in these first college football playoff rankings could host a playoff game. How? You haven't even played one ranked team this season, right? I think they're about, and look, I like their quarterback play against Michigan State. I really did. But look, nobody is playing the quality of competition like the SEC, period. I did see that Peanut the squirrel, what happened with that? That was crazy. I love my pets. All right, so let's look at the top 25. And we have 104 in here. Take a minute. Hit the thumbs up. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys are off to an amazing start. Got a lot of gratitude today just for being here, being on the show, talking Alabama football. And what's up? Man, it's always good. Like, life is a blessing, right? I'm feeling good. Love you guys. Thank you very much for being here. It means a lot to me. Here's a look at the AP Top 25. Alabama now at 11. Got Oregon, who is undefeated. You got Georgia. Battled through Florida, 7-1. Saw DJ Lagway go out of that game. Number 3, Ohio State, beating Penn State. And look, I watched that game, and I'm sure you guys did too. Even when Ohio State was down in the beginning part of that game, I never felt like Penn State was going to win that game. In fact, for the majority of the game, and I know the score was close, 20-13 or whatever, Ohio State had the momentum of that game. Penn State does not win big games. They do not. It's even hard still seeing them at number 6. James Franklin, he'll get you 9 wins, 8 wins, but he will not win big games, period. He will not win big games. He won't. What is he, 1-10 against Ohio State? That's not it. And him interacting with the fans after the game, that's not it either. I didn't like that. You got Tennessee at 7. You got Indiana, who is undefeated with a 9-0 record. It's hard to win games non-consecutive weeks, or if they've had a bye week or whatever it is, the quarterback is playing good. But it's also it's easier to win those type of games when you're not playing top 25 teams. I think that's facts. BYU, same thing. 8-0 on the season. Notre Dame, 7-1. Could you imagine where Notre Dame would be, or Indiana would be, or BYU would be if they were playing in the SEC? I'm serious. Look, I know this is a SEC-geared show because it's Alabama football, SEC, so we're going to hold more weight to the SEC, but we watch more SEC football. I don't know where these teams would be because they're not playing the same type of schedule as the SEC. And right now, and I'm going to show you my playoff rankings, I have 4 teams going into the playoffs from the SEC. I did have 5 at first. I think it'll be 4. And I have a little graphic that'll show you who beat who here in a second. Let me just run through these, the AP top 25. You have Alabama, who now moved to 11. You have Boise State at 7-1. You have SMU at 8-1. LSU at 6-2. Texas A&M losing to South Carolina, 7-2. Ole Miss 7-2. Iowa State lost its first game, losing to Texas Tech. They are now 7-1. We talked about that game that maybe y'all would be close. You have Army, who is undefeated at 8-0. You have Clemson losing to Louisville. Washington State, Colorado moves up to 21. Kansas State 7-2. Pitt 7-1. Vandy, man, that's the most dangerous number 24 team in the country, right? What's up, Brady? I see you inside the comment box, man. Yo, Keelan Russell, man, he's gonna get a lot of attention by the end of the season as his play is just stellar. So, I mean, why not Alabama when you have a quarterback like that coming on board? 100%. And then Louisville, who was able to beat Clemson. You know who's having a really nice season for Louisville is Ja'Cory Brooks, their wide receiver. I think he had 42 yards in that game. All right, so look, here are my playoff rankings, okay? And when I looked at the playoff rankings, and the official playoff rankings will be released tomorrow night. Probably have a show after it or during, I'm not sure. We'll see where the chips fall tomorrow. We'll talk about the playoff rankings and where Alabama falls in the playoffs. I've had Alabama all over the place. I think if you go to the ESPN playoff predictor, they even have Alabama hosting a game as a number 8 seed. So the AP top 25 is not the college football playoff ranking, period. We know that the top 4 teams right here on my rankings, those teams get a playoff bid. And what I did was I ranked those teams based off today, right? So let's walk you through it. So Oregon, they're 9-0. They have Maryland, they have Wisconsin, and Washington. Those are their next 3 games. Their best win up to this point is against Ohio State, right? Beat them at home. Not in Columbus. They beat them in Eugene. They're the Big Ten number 1, okay? You have Georgia at 7-1. They have Ole Miss, Tennessee. Those are some tough games, right? They have UMass, Georgia Tech. So they have 4 more games. Their best win is against Texas on the road in Austin. Number 3, you have Miami. Now, this team, look, they're really good at grass basketball. 100%. I mean, Cam Ward is a really good quarterback. The last couple of games that I've watched Miami play, they have trailed at some point in that game. Now, you could say that I guess you could say that even for Alabama besides the Missouri game, right? The last 3 or 4 games that Alabama played and they were losing at one time. But Miami, they do not seem to have an elite style defense, but they can score a ton of points and they can score points fast. And you got to think with Clemson losing to Louisville, Miami is like the 100% shot to win the ACC. I saw Miami beat Louisville a couple weeks ago. I watched that game. So they have Georgia Tech, Wake, Syracuse. I mean, I love that cardiac canes. That's good, Jarvis. I would imagine that Syracuse would play Miami tight, but now I think Miami just runs the table and they just finish undefeated, period. So if they finish these 3 games, they'll be, 12-0? So you're looking at 13-0 after the ACC championship game. Number 4, BYU. Look, we're going to look at BYU in just a second, a little bit closer. They play Utah on the road. Then you got Kansas, Arizona State. They got Houston, right? I don't think they'll lose any of those games. Their best win is against Kansas State. And for Miami, I said best win, I guess, is against Louisville. Other than that, they haven't really played a top 25, top 10 type team. They really haven't. Not making this up. These are facts. Ohio State, they're 7-1. They got Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana coming up. That's a marquee game, clearly. I would imagine that Ohio State has their way with the Hoosiers. Then you got Michigan. They'll beat Michigan this year. Their best win so far is against Penn State, who I think is kind of like smoke and mirrors at this point. Texas at 7-1. Got Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. I think they'll win the rest of those games. The game at Kyle Field, I think, will be interesting just because it's on the road. A&M will be fighting. And really, the way it's shaken out is I think Georgia, granted they somehow get past Ole Miss and they beat Tennessee, they'll be the number one in the SEC. We'll talk about the SEC in just a second. But it looks like if I had to pick right now the SEC championship game, I'd go with Georgia and Texas. Because I think Texas will be able to beat Texas A&M in that last game, which will pair those two teams up in the SEC championship game. Notre Dame, I mean, this team lost to, was it Northern Illinois? But they have a win against Texas A&M, which I guess doesn't look that good, as good as it did last week, because Texas A&M is no longer the number one in the SEC, but still, they're 7-1. They got Florida State, Virginia, Army, USC. I'd imagine they win all those games. Maybe USC can somehow upset them. Best win is against Texas A&M. They're independent. Number 8, Tennessee. They beat Mississippi State. Or they'll play Mississippi State, this coming week. Then they go to Athens and they play UTEP. Then they play Vandy. Best win is against Bama, right? I mean, that's really that kind of right now their saving grace is the fact that they beat Bama. And then number 9, I guess you have the 4th team from the SEC here at this point in time. Now, again, you could seed Tennessee over Notre Dame, and you could seed the SEC number 4 over Notre Dame, in my opinion. So I put Alabama, Texas A&M, or LSU. I kind of see those 3 teams right now as in 4th place in the SEC. We'll talk about the SEC more in a minute. But I just feel that if Alabama wins out, they'll be 10-2. They'll have a win over LSU, and they'll have a win against Georgia, right? And then I put Indiana at 10. The closer you look with the microscope at Indiana, the less that you'll feel like you respect the season. In fact, they're 9-0. I have it at 8-0. They're 9-0. But their schedule has been so soft. And I think they're going to lose to Ohio State here in a couple weeks. Penn State, I don't know where to put this team. I guess at 11, right? And then you have a couple other teams that are undefeated as well. And then you have Boise State at 7-1. So that's how I had it looking. And when you punch in the numbers, this is what it comes out to. For an overall graphic, based off that, this is how the playoffs would look. So Oregon would be the number 1. Georgia would be the number 2. Number 3 would be Miami. Number 4 would be BYU. Up top, Boise State would be going to Ohio State. Tennessee would be hosting, let's just say theoretically, Alabama. So Alabama theoretically could have another road game at Knoxville. Again, this is all hypothetical. I still imagine if Alabama finishes out 10-2 and they win, they'll host a game in the playoffs. Texas, Penn State. So a lot of these matchups, and then the battle for Indiana, I guess, with Notre Dame and Indiana playing at that 7-10. Here's a look at the undefeated teams right now. Indiana's 9-0, and I think Army's 8-0. What's up, fam? I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. Remember, you got a basketball game tonight. Alabama in action. We'll talk more about the basketball team. I'll take your guys' calls here in a little while as well. We can play Monday morning quarterback. Coach Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, and Coach Kane Womack up at the podium around 11:30 this morning. We'll carry those press conferences right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for supporting the product and, continuing to rock with me through this college football season. I said at the beginning of the season, this would be a season that we weren't accustomed to. I didn't expect this much parity. I just thought it would be a wild college football season, and it has been that. And I think it's going to continue to be wild as we move forward. And look, if you wanted to like skip past the entire show in the entire week, I'll save you the skinny on how to make the playoffs. Just win. Seriously, I could make a video and be like, how does Alabama make the playoffs? Just win out. And then that'd be it. It'd be a 2-second video. But we cover college football, and we talk about all the scenarios and, you know, the different rat poisons, and because this is what we do. We love it. This is like our culture. All right, so looking at the undefeated teams right now, let's start on the left with Miami. So when you look at their schedule, like what, and I'm serious, I need your help. If you're inside the comment box, grade this schedule, just Miami right now, on a scale of 1 to 10. And 10 being very challenging and 1 being not so much. Or 1 being like a cakewalk. So we're with Miami right now, and we're grading Miami's schedule. 1 being an absolute cakewalk, 10 being very challenging. Okay. You beat Florida on the road. Okay. Going to Gainesville, the swamp, that's tough. You beat Florida A&M, cake. Ball State, cake. South Florida, you go to Tampa and you beat the Bulls. Those guys can punch. You come back to beat Virginia Tech on the last-second touchdown. You go to Cal, and you have to come back to beat Cal, a team that Florida State beat. Think about that. Think about what I just said, okay? You go back and forth with Louisville, literally back and forth, and you win that grass basketball. Literally, the Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, those were all grass basketball games, including this Duke game. You beat up on Florida State, and Duke was leading at one point of the game. So fans are saying anywhere from 3, I haven't even seen a 5. 3, 4, let's say 3.5. Lynn is saying 4. Yeah, okay, so maybe it's 4. And I mean, nothing really on the back end really stands out besides, I guess, maybe that Syracuse game. I talk about Syracuse, but not so much anymore ever since McCord threw 5 picks against Pittsburgh. Yikes. Mario Gates is saying 4 as well. Ronnie's straight up saying it's cakewalk. All right. Light schedule, but look, these guys are going to win out. 100%. They're going to win out, and they'll have a record of, 12 or 13-0 when they're in the playoff room. Who knows? They could even be, I don't think they'd be the number 1 seed, but maybe they could maybe be number 2. Whatever the case, it seems like the Canes are in. All right, BYU, same thing. Let's look at their schedule. 1 cakewalk, 10 ultra challenging. Eric D saying don't forget about Georgia Tech and Brent Key. There you go. I like that. Plus the game's in Atlanta, right? I appreciate it, Eric D. What's up, Southern Red? Good morning to you. All right, we're talking BYU, who is undefeated right now. What would you grade their schedule? Or what would you rank it? 10, really challenging, 1 cakewalk. Southern Illinois, the Salukis. Then SMU. SMU's pretty good. I think they've only lost 1 game on the season. At Wyoming, probably beautiful up there. Kansas State, that's their best win of the season. They're pretty good. Baylor, mid-tier, if that. Arizona, nothing. Oklahoma State, underachieving. You know what? Call me crazy, but this schedule seems a little bit more challenging than Miami's. Right? Just a little bit. Then you go to Utah and you play Utah without Cam Rising. You play Kansas, go to Tempe, play Arizona State. KTK said Miami 1, BYU 6.5. See, Brady, I'm with you inside the comment box. I think BYU's schedule is just a little bit more challenging than Miami. Not by much, but SMU, they're pretty good. Kansas State's pretty good. Oklahoma State's pretty good. I mean, Miami, I guess Louisville and I don't know. Who knows? Cam Moore that dude can ball for sure. Okay. All right, Indiana. Same thing. 1 cakewalk, 10 ultra challenging. Let's walk through it. Florida International, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State. Like, yo, are you kidding me? A depleted now Michigan. And you have them at home. And you also have, then you go to Columbus and you'll be completely exposed. They probably play pretty well in that game. Maybe because they're just excited because they beat what? Let's say they beat Michigan. So that'd be what? 10-0. They'd be 10-0 going into Columbus on the 23rd. So we're ranking Indiana's schedule right now. I don't think it's challenging at all. Chad is saying 1. I maybe see like, I don't know, maybe like a 2. What's up, Ebony? Good to see you inside the comment box. J-Bag, what's up? J-Bag's taking Indiana to beat Ohio State. Now, I will say this. Indiana's quarterback is very, very good. Kenny, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here. All right. Last one. Army. 1 through 10 on Army. 1 being a cakewalk, 10 being elite. All right. Florida Atlantic, Rice, Temple, Tulsa, UAB, Eastern Carolina, Air Force. Come on. Look, you know I love Army. You know I love Navy. I love the Air Force. This is not it. I think, you know, in Notre Dame is going to be able to defeat Navy and Army, right? So -1, that's just not a schedule. KTK, I think I might be with you, man. Yo, Army, man, that's just not a tough schedule. That's it. I would love to see Indiana and Miami. I think I would imagine that Miami wins that game. I think Miami will beat Indiana. But what is that saying? I mean, who would win, Miami or Tennessee? Who would win, Miami or South Carolina? Who would win, Miami or Vanderbilt? Who would win, Miami or how about this one? Miami or Ole Miss? Who would win in that game? Seriously, okay, so undefeated Miami, which teams would they beat? What's up? I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. I'll take your calls after my morning segment, and then we'll work our way to Coach Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, Kane Womack coming up at 11:30 Central Time. I'm liking the time. Look, call me crazy. I know. This might be a hot take. The only thing I like about the time change is the morning because the sun comes out earlier. Now, I get it. Last night, I was ready to go to bed at like 6:30. I watched the Vikings and the Colts game. Yo, that Colts defensive line was fantastic. The game was didn't have a lot of offenses. You know, you don't like defense, that game probably put you to sleep. Okay, where would Miami be on this graphic? And it's not all the SEC teams. I just showed, from Georgia to Ole Miss. Kenny's saying, according to ESPN, Miami has the #1 most difficult schedule of the undefeated teams. Miami, the only team to beat and play SEC team. Yeah, that's why, I'm curious. I appreciate that, Kenny. What's up, man? But where would Miami be on this graphic? Would they be Ole Miss? I don't think so. I don't know. I know that game would feature 140 points. Maybe. Would they beat Bama? I don't think they beat Alabama. Would they beat Texas? I don't think they beat Texas. I don't think they beat LSU. And I don't think they beat Tennessee. A&M, I don't know. Probably not. Jay Baker is saying they'd be way back there. They get relegated back to like the Big 12, ACC or somewhere. I just don't know. Does anybody think inside the comment box that Miami would beat one of these teams? And that's going to be the challenge for the playoff ranking group. And I hope that they understand like the parity, and they will, because we've all talked about it. But how do you like put teams in the playoffs and fit these teams in when these teams, have played this gauntlet of a schedule? Tony brings up, wouldn't it be crazy if Vandy beats Tennessee? There's a lot of things that could still happen. I haven't even really put, the thought process on some of these like scenarios. Here's a look at the SEC. Look, what happens if Georgia loses to, and the record is the team's record in SEC on the left. And the reason why I have Bama ahead of Vanderbilt is because on the official SEC website, the tiebreaker criteria, along with head-to-head, is since they're tied in conference play, it is head-to-head, but also your overall record. And since Vandy is 6-3, they're below Bama. That's why. But we all know that the Vanderbilt and Tennessee beat Bama. We understand that. I haven't even thought about other scenarios taking place, like Georgia. What if they were to lose to Ole Miss? What if they were to lose to Tennessee? Then they'd have 2 conference losses, right? And I think we all kind of assume that Texas A&M loses to Texas. I don't know. And then Texas, they got to play Florida at Arkansas. Arkansas allowed a lot of points just recently. Kentucky, and the percentage is from ESPN. And then Texas A&M on the back end. The record to the far right is if they win those games. Yeah, Jared, I'm with you, man. I don't think there's any way that Georgia loses to Tennessee. But what about Ole Miss? Is there anyone out there that thinks Ole Miss could beat Georgia? I don't. I don't think so. It doesn't seem like Ole Miss wins very many like big games. Kimberly, what's up? See you inside the comment box. Good morning to you. LSU, they take on Alabama this Saturday. Then they have Florida, Vandy, Oklahoma. Tennessee has Mississippi State, Georgia, and at Vandy. Bama has LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. Of course, these are just the conference games. It doesn't include Mercer. And then Vanderbilt takes on South. That's going to be a great game. Vandy and South Carolina? Hell yeah. That's going to be a great game. I like all these games are going to be interesting to me. Vandy against South Carolina, LSU, and Tennessee. That's great. That's great TV right there. Ron South, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here. Good morning to you. I guess I think the easiest route right now, and I haven't even thought of scenarios of how Bama can make the playoff or the SEC title game. To make the playoffs, I just think they win out. But to make the SEC title game, I think there still is a possibility. You'd have to have a couple teams lose. And I was kind of thinking about this as well. I said that you almost don't want to play in the SEC title game. So let's break this down real quick. What if somehow Alabama makes the SEC championship game? Okay. They finish out 10-2. They play in the SEC championship game. What would be scary is if they don't win that game, because I think they would be penalized for losing late in the season and not make the playoffs. It would be like another playoff play-in game for them, right? I think there's some scenarios to where they could still make it. Hey, KTK, I'll run through it again, man. I appreciate it. There's a lot of comments, so maybe I missed it. Oh, KTK has 1 loss Texas versus 2 loss Bama. Tiebreakers would go to Bama with the win over Georgia, correct? And Tennessee gets blocked out. But Vandy would have to lose again, which is possible considering they play South Carolina, LSU, and Tennessee. I just think if Alabama didn't win the SEC championship game, even if they made the game, they would be penalized and like kicked out of the playoffs. right? So if Alabama finishes 10-2 and doesn't play for the SEC title game, I think it's almost impossible for them to be left out, especially if Georgia wins the SEC championship. And I think they would beat Texas again. Bama and Oregon in the first round. Well, I think Oregon will be a first-round seed from. You imagine going up to BYU for that? Because if you look to this graphic right here, imagine going. What if BYU does win out? What does that say? Going up to what, Provo, Utah, on December 31st to play BYU? Ooh, man, that game is going to be in the snow. 100%. That Ohio State game probably be in the snow too. But I don't know. There's like no winter down here in Tuscaloosa. I'm not asking for the cold. I'm just saying. I don't like the cold. If you go to ESPN's playoff predictor, this is interesting as well. So just type in ESPN playoff predictor. It's a really cool site to mess around with. It has a ton of different scenarios, right? What's up, Factual Opinion? Appreciate you being up in the house. And here are the current percentages as of today for teams to make the playoffs. Georgia, 92%, and this is as of today. Tennessee, 74%. What I did is I just put the teams from the SEC and the teams from the Big Ten. Tennessee, 74%. Alabama 56, Ole Miss 29, LSU 22, Texas A&M 19. Now that all can change clearly if Alabama loses to LSU this coming weekend. By the way, they're a 2.5 favorite against the Tigers in LSU. And here at the bottom, it's just, I mean, look at Indiana, 87%. Penn State, 74%. JTL's like, stop looking at predictions. Right? This is the rat poison. I just think Indiana's going to lose. I think Ole Miss will probably lose. LSU will lose. A&M will lose. And Tennessee will lose. And then Bama continues to move up. Oh, I guess I didn't even put Texas in there. When I punched in all this information, so what I did was I put Alabama winning against LSU, Oklahoma, and Auburn. And this is what ESPN gave me. So like I said, you can go mess around with this yourself. And it came out with if Alabama finish 10-2 and they didn't make their SEC championship game, they had a 97% chance to make the playoffs with a 10-2 record. And to host a first-round game, 60%. So it came up with this graphic. I didn't. And it had Alabama hosting Indiana as an 8 versus 9. It gave Georgia the number 5 spot. They were hosting Tennessee. The top 4 seeds were Miami at 1, Oregon at 2, Texas at 3, and BYU at 4. So that's how it looked when you play around with that. It's cool to mess around with the site. Every single scenario seems to be different. Run the Table Sports has Colorado getting in. I'm not going to lie. I would actually like to see Colorado get in kind of on that back end just because of, it's interesting college football. I just don't know if they have the defense. But Shadori and Travis Hunter is just unbelievable. All right, we're going to run through an early look at Alabama and LSU. Hit on Alabama basketball playing tonight, and then I'm going to take your calls. So let me roll through a couple of these graphics, and then we'll get it going. All right, Alabama taking on LSU this coming Saturday. Alabama now favored by 2.5. Alabama is 6-2 on the season, 3-2 in SEC play. LSU is 6-2 and 3-1 in SEC play. Clearly a lot on the line. When you look to the rat poison indicator, it has Alabama as a 70% favorite in this matchup. When you look to the comparison between the two quarterbacks. And you know what? I needed to make a correction. So for the past couple days, I've been talking about Nussmeier. I referred to him as Grant. His name is Garrett, so my bad. If like any of his family or anyone else saw that, I'm sorry. That was on me. So his name is Garrett Nussmeier, so my bad. Fantastic quarterback. On the season, 2,600 yards. Jalen Milroe, 1,900 yards, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. For Nussmeier, he has 20 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Jam Miller has 74 carries, 450 and 7. And I'm as we move forward to this game, I really hope that Jam and Justice play a large part in this game. We saw that they could run the football last week, and I get it. It was a depleted Missouri team, but running the football, I think, is the key to success throughout the back end of the season for Alabama. I really believe that. And I think it will open up the passing game. I really do. LSU has a ton of weapons. Lacey has 41 receptions for 618 yards and 6 touchdowns. As you know, freshman phenom Ryan Williams has 35 receptions for 702 yards and 7 touchdowns. And you know who's balling out for LSU is Aaron Anderson. I'm glad to see things working out for him. When you watch other players leave Alabama, it seems to me like not a lot of things work out for these guys when they kind of head other places. But like Eli Holston, he's balling out. Aaron Anderson, he's balling out. Ja'Cory Brooks, he's balling out at Louisville. Who are some other transfers that are doing well? The guys at Florida State, man, I feel bad for those guys, but were they going to play here? I mean, Roydell Williams, I don't think he could play over any of these guys. I love the kid. Earl Little Jr., we could definitely use the depth, right? Sean Murphy, probably not. Malik Benson, I don't know, hard to get on the field. I honestly think Jeremy Bernard is better than Malik Benson, and obviously Ryan Williams is too, right? But, Caleb Downs, I think he's doing well, yeah. But other than that, when they leave Bama, you kind of just like never hear of them again. There's like 5 or 6 of guys that are doing Jai Hall. Oof, man. That was wild. All right, so Garrett Nussmeier, when you look at a snapshot of what he's done, so clearly we all know, we understand the weak spot of Alabama's defense is the secondary. It's depleted. Oh, look, Bray Hubbard did an amazing job. We love what he did. It doesn't matter if it's Bray Hubbard, doesn't matter if it's Keon Sabb. The secondary is going to be challenged, okay? Clearly, like heavily challenged. And this guy is going to throw the football, 40 times, probably more than 40 times. There's a storm, North Alabama storm chase. I didn't get the weather report today. Maybe send it in and let me know how we're looking for this storm that people are starting to talk about coming in. They don't even know if it's going to hit Baton Rouge. But there's like this long storm system that could turn into something like tropical, but it seems kind of far off. My point is this guy is going to throw the football 45 times. Against A&M, just recently, right, threw the ball 50 times. He's only 50%. He threw 3 interceptions. Now, the thing about Alabama, and we don't talk about this a lot, and we probably should, but Alabama is actually ranked 4th in the country in terms of forced turnovers. Now, that number could have changed because Alabama was on a bye, but they get a ton of interceptions, and they cause a lot of forced fumbles. While, Alabama's defense, we've been critical of them in several different areas. They do get turnovers, 100%. Against Arkansas, he threw the football 34 times. Mississippi State, 51. You can see the numbers on the screen. But that's a lot of yardage. I mean, he is certainly going to go to the air. And I think we all know, I'm not trying to spread fear here. This is the best quarterback that Alabama will have faced since Carson Beck, right? From Boise State, did we cover Boise State? No, we didn't really look at Boise State. I know they have 1 loss on the season. I would imagine that's the team for the Mountain West that gets in, right? They beat UNLV earlier in the year. Byron Russell, I think that's it, man. You got to make him uncomfortable. And you got to have the secondary step up. Now can the what I feel the secondary is just going to be what it is. I don't think that you can make any vast improvements. Like, that's it. And now these guys will be challenged. And people know that. And you get pass rush. Maybe these guys step up. But, you still have freshmen out there. You still have Xavier Brown. You have Malachi Moore, who's been playing at a really good level. But I think there are areas within the secondary that concern me. Got to get a good pass rush. And if you do that, I think you have a better chance. And if you could run the football, maybe keep that defense off the field, because Alabama will be able to move the ball against LSU. It's not going to be, for example, Tennessee and LSU had defenses that were in the top 10. I get it. Jalen Milroe has been inaccurate. Sometimes the offense has lacked kind of an identity or relied too much off the big play. We understand all that. But they also have played some really good defensive schemes, period. Even South Carolina, their edge rushers were fantastic. LSU's defense, I think there's some holes in LSU's defense. And I think having 2 weeks to prep for that, just like Alabama had 2 weeks to prep for Georgia, you could see Alabama's offense come out really, really hot. Now, LSU, their total defense, 63 in the nation, 63rd, right? 60. And then you have the third down defense, which is what, 79th? The penalties, certainly. That's another thing. In fact, the last time that Alabama was, Jarvis, if you're on there, how many penalties did Alabama have last time when they were in Baton Rouge? It was something similar to Tennessee. It was like 15 or 16 or something like that. Yeah, Simple Rick, you're right, man. The two biggest concerns with Alabama football are the secondary, number one, and then the right side of the offensive line. But we know that, so the coaches clearly know that as well. Maybe you keep a tight end there. Maybe you put a running back as well. But I think Alabama will be able to move the football against LSU. So maybe take the over on total points. I think there'll be points in this game. I don't think it'll be like a 24-21. I think it'll be more like a 37-30, 37-28, something like that. I think there'll be a lot of points in this game. All right, as you know, Alabama's remaining schedule: LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. Auburn just recently lost another SEC game to Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia has beat Hugh Freeze 3 times. And we can't sleep on that Oklahoma game. I get it. Oklahoma is depleted. They're kind of down and out. Coach Saban always said that team still has pride in performance. I wouldn't sleep on that game. It's on the road. It'll probably be freezing. It's right around Thanksgiving. I don't know. Don't get lost. All right. Alabama basketball. I'm taking calls after this segment about the basketball team. Alabama basketball, they open tonight. All right. They open tonight here in Tuscaloosa, UNC Asheville, where they are a 22.5 favorite. The game is on ESPNU. It's at 8 p.m. 22-point favorite. If you haven't really had an opportunity to sink your teeth into Alabama basketball, please do so. You will not be disappointed. This isn't basketball of like the past where it's like slowed down, boring basketball. This is up-tempo basketball with probably the most highly talented basketball roster ever assembled ever for the Crimson Tide, period. And there's a lot of people who are basketball historians or know much more about basketball than I do that would probably say the same thing. Currently, they're preseason number 2 in the AP and coaches poll, coming off of Final Four, first ever Final Four appearance. The returners: Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, Wrightsell, Stevenson, Diabate. Those 5 right there would get you excited. You add in Youngblood, Amori, right? The big transfer who they were lacking last year. The big inside presence. He's a transfer from Rutgers. This guy's phenomenal, right? Holloway, Houston Mallett, right, from Pepperdine. Freshman to watch, LeBaron Philon. You are going to be so impressed with him. I promise you. He'll probably be in the starting lineup tonight. It's hard to believe, but Nate Oates is in his 6th season. He has a near 70% winning percentage in the SEC. In fact, Alabama favored to win the SEC. Here's a look at the starting 5. I put Grant Nelson in red. He's battling a kind of an early season injury. I don't think that he'll start tonight. But if I had to go with when things really start getting going, I would imagine this is what the starting 5 looks like. And this would be a starting 5 that includes 3 guards. Hey, Drewski, thanks for adding Trayshawn Holden from Oregon to other transfers that have been doing well. Appreciate that. I mean, Mark Sears, are you kidding me? And look how many graduates. I mean, this team has so much experience. Wrightsell's a graduate, Sears a graduate, Nelson a graduate. Amori's a graduate. Man. This is just a hell of a roster. Here's a look at the schedule real quick for Alabama. And look, Coach Oates is not afraid to schedule really good competition. Are they going to drop some games within here? I don't know. I mean, the roster's pretty talented, but, basketball kind of goes up and down. And you can, I don't know. Maybe they lose a couple in here. I mean, shoot, look who they play. Purdue, at Purdue. Illinois, the Big Ten teams are always tough. Houston's going to be really good, as they always are. That's kind of a low-key rivalry, basketball-wise. Their coach doesn't like Nate Oates. Or at least, the rival from the competitive spirit. I'm sure they're friends, but like the competitive spirit, those two guys have gotten into it a couple times. Rutgers, that's a kind of a homecoming for Amori. Look at this schedule. North Carolina, they're pissed off from last year. They're going to be excited to see Grant Nelson, or maybe they won't be, because that's when Grant Nelson absolutely went off against the Tar Heels. Creighton's, they're always good. And then North Dakota, another reunion for Grant Nelson, right? Coming from North Dakota. Hell of a schedule. All right, what we're going to do is I'll take your calls now. Hit on, so pretty much open mic. I mean, you want to talk Alabama, LSU. You want to talk early playoff rankings. You want to talk about the SEC. You want to talk about, whatever. I'm going to just open the mic to you guys so you guys call in. Remember, always be mindful that there's probably somebody else behind you in the call queue that wants to call in and talk. So the call-in number is 205-850-1994. I appreciate you guys supporting the product. We have a super chat goal. If you're a fan funder, I really appreciate it as well. Just $2.99 to support the channel overall. I'm a content creator full-time. I live here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This is what I do for a full-time basis, and I appreciate you guys rocking with me right here on Bama Football on YouTube. And I always try to bring graphics and my energy, and every single show is from my heart. So now Oates came from Buffalo. All right, we got 832 to kick off the show. We start right now. I think we got a free Mike up next. Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hello, Kyle. Good morning. Good Monday morning. Thank you for taking my call. Hey, I'm on the road. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. We got Mike in Austin calling in. Go ahead, Mike. Welcome on to the show, man.
Okay. Good. Hey, bud. This year, I think as far as the playoffs go, it's still kind of wide open, because there's the teams of 1 or 2 losses. And really from this point, as far as the SEC, the championship game and the playoff is just kind of even out of mind for now. But even just the SEC, it's just wide open because there's just so much football left to be played. And just kind of like you remember these years past where it came down to the very end, But, Georgia, when Alabama beat Georgia and gave Georgia that loss, it kind of made it anybody's game. And then Georgia turned around and given Texas that loss. It kind of made it anybody's game. But I really think that the best team in the SEC, it pains me to say it, is Georgia, because they are where we've been many, many years with Nick Saban, the best team in the SEC. But that doesn't mean you're going to win every game. That doesn't mean you're going to win them all. But just the program, the stability, the roster, they're probably the best team in the country right now. I'm not impressed with Texas. I'll be honest with you. Texas hasn't shown me much. They've played one tough game, Georgia, and annihilated. And then the second toughest game, Vandy, came down to an onside kick. So Texas, the verdict is still out there, but it's still anybody's to win the SEC. But let me ask you, I'm not in front of a TV, but what are Georgia's toughest games? Well, what are the games Georgia has left that they potentially could lose?
Well, I think when you look to Georgia's schedule, they have a game coming up against Ole Miss. Then they also play Tennessee. So I think those two games clearly present challenges in itself. I mean, look, I don't think Tennessee has the offense to beat Georgia. Their defense is really good, as we saw, but the quarterback's just not there right now. I would imagine Lane Kiffin, but it's kind of like, I'm not going to compare Lane Kiffin to James Franklin of Penn State, but they don't win big games. So I don't feel that Ole Miss wins these big games, and I think that Georgia goes into Oxford and comes out with the W. What do you think about that matchup, Mike?
I think Ole Miss is capable of beating anybody. Now, will they beat Georgia? I don't know. But I'll make a wild prediction here. Georgia will lose one of them games. I will make a wild prediction, whether it's Ole Miss that is capable of beating anybody, or Tennessee that's capable of beating anybody. I'm going to go ahead and say Georgia's going to lose one of them games just by the nature of how tough the SEC is and the way it's going to be. But with Ole Miss, here's my deal with Lane. Ole Miss has a ceiling. No matter who that's just my 50-year opinion. Lane Kiffin needs to get out of there. Here's my opinion. Lane Kiffin needs to get to Florida Gators. Coach Prime needs to get to the Seminoles. That is just my opinion. Lane Kiffin is very capable. He's still a young man, Kyle. He's probably your age or younger. He's still a young man. He's got a lot of coaching left to do. He came from privilege. The dude made a lot of mistakes. He's owned up to his mistakes, man. He's owned up. He's had to mature the hard way. We all have, Kyle. Lane Kiffin's going to win the trophy one day, dude. He ain't going to do it to Ole Miss. But with that being said, Ole Miss has the potential to beat anybody, and they may or may not. I think they're one of them teams. Didn't they put up 60 points against Arkansas? I mean, they're one of them teams that if they make it to the playoffs, they can possibly go all the way. Who knows? But they're a wild card team. Tennessee, I think, is beatable. Tennessee is beatable. Kyle, I'm not one to blame the officials on nothing, but I think that Tennessee game could have went either way. We lost to Tennessee. Yeah, they beat us. But honestly, if they would have caught all them pawing, holding, tackling, throwing Brian Williams to the ground, if they just threw them flags, we would have won them games. We'd have won. But I'm not one to say that. We lost the game. I didn't want to say we lost that game. But it's still anybody's wide open. But as far as Texas, Kyle, honestly, they ain't showed me nothing. I think their toughest game is at Texas A&M. Oh, my God, I hope they lose that game. I hope Texas A&M beats Texas. We all got to root for A&M to beat them, because other than that, Texas has been gifted with comparatively the easiest schedule in the SEC. Now, they've still got a tough schedule because they're in the SEC, a decent schedule. They're in the SEC. But like I mentioned, they got whooped by Georgia. And if not for the bottle throwing incident, overturned call, they really would have got whooped by Georgia. And they barely beat Vandy. Other than that, they play Oklahoma every year. That's when they'll wash. They beat Mississippi State. Okay, everybody beats Mississippi State. Everybody beats Mississippi State. So Texas, really, the verdict is still out, man. So it's still my point is Texas is beatable. Georgia, I predicted before the season, Georgia's going to have 2 losses. I'm sticking with that, Kyle. I'm sticking with that. Now, as far as the LSU game coming up, dude, it's the hardest game of the season to call, Kyle. This is a hard one to call. This is why, man. Our beloved Crimson Tide, we're still trying to figure them out, dude. We know who we got and what we got. But first year DeBoer, Milroe, I think Milroe's a good quarterback, but you know how it goes. Are we going to see the superstar 4th and 31 beat Georgia twice, Milroe? Mm-hmm. Are we going to see that Milroe? Are we going to see the Milroe dancing with the stars because our O-line can't block for him? What Milroe are we going to see? And so we don't really know what Alabama team's going to show up, which I have a good idea. I think we're a little better than LSU. Yes, but kind of like you mentioned, our defensive backfield is a little susceptible. They got Nussmeier over there. He's got potential, dude. The dude can puts up 400 yards sometimes. LSU, this is a must-win game for them. You got to look at where they're at in the season. They lost their last game, I think it was to A&M. They're hungry to win this one. So it's a night game at Baton Rouge. LSU is a must-win for them. It's a must-win for Brian Kelly. It's a hard game to call. So I'm not even going to make a prediction on it, man. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and root for the good guys, which is us. But it's just the toughest game. But Kyle, as far as the season, it's still wide open, man. Bama can still go to the playoffs. We can still win the SEC, and we just got to see how it plays out. But there's still a lot of football left to be played, you know.
I appreciate you calling in, Mike. Thanks so much, man. Always good to hear from you.
All right, good luck. God bless, man. 5 more months in Austin, and I'm out of here, man. 5 more months, and I'm out. Later, brother. Bye, man.
All right, see ya. Mike in Austin calling. The call line is open, 205-850-1994. I think there's a lot on the line, clearly, when you look at this game. I mean, if you wanted to skip to the end of the playoffs or the playoff selection show, just win out, right? That's you know that. We all know that. It's just win out. And I think Mike brings up a really interesting point, is like which Jalen Milroe will show up. Clearly we know he's capable of being the most dangerous quarterback in college football. The last few games that he has played in, last game he didn't even throw a touchdown. Before that against Tennessee, that was wasn't his best performance. But I think what we saw at the beginning against Georgia, I mean, my goodness. I mean, who wouldn't want him leading your program? Who wouldn't want Jalen Milroe as the quarterback? And I strongly feel, and I haven't even gone over really like keys to the game, but I think it's pretty simple, to be honest. I think come up with stops in the secondary if you can, kind of weather the storm in the secondary, because Garrett Nussmeier, he's having a fantastic season. I think if you run the ball effectively, then you're able to control the time of possession. I feel that the running game up to this last point in time had been very underutilized. And I would imagine that those running backs before this last game were a little bit frustrated. But my goodness, like if you questioned Justice Haynes, his physicality, or thought that he was kind of tippy-toeing around, and you know what? That kind of started to seep in my head too. I was like, man, maybe Justice Haynes maybe he doesn't have it at this point in time. Well, he laid that thunderstick on the dude from Missouri, and everybody heard it up in the stands. We go back to a 9-1-0. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson, who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from? Hey, 910, what's up, man?
Yeah, hey, Kyle. This is Christian from California.
What's up, Christian? I appreciate you calling in, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. I got a problem with just kind of how, like, the Big Ten, Big Ten, but, they got more than 10 teams now. But I got a problem just with Penn State in general. They played all these cupcakes the whole year, fumble an egg against Ohio State, and they're still ranked somewhere in the top 10 when they haven't played nowhere near as close to the competition. Bama, LSU, I mean, even Ohio State, they played at Oregon. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the thing. It's kind of the same thing with Indiana, because Indiana is going to play all these cupcake teams and then get blown out by Ohio State, have one loss, and still be in. Mm-hmm. Miss their conference championship and then still find a way to get in. But everybody's going to knock Alabama for losing on the road to Tennessee by one possession. on the road to a ranked Vanderbilt that I think took us all by surprise. We didn't expect them to be as good as they were. And you're going to penalize them for that under a first-year head coach in the SEC.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? Because Alabama has a top 5 strength of record still with 2 losses over Indiana, over Penn State, and then their strength of record is top 5 as well. So that's a 6-2 team that lost 2 games on the road by 1 possession, and you're going to knock them. But they still have the best win in the entire country because they beat Georgia, who's the number 2 ranked team in the country. But Penn State's best win is Wisconsin, which Alabama beat 42-10 on the road. And Wisconsin, had to get that late touchdown in order to secure the victory. So my biggest thing with how things are playing out is not the fact that Alabama isn't going to make the college football playoffs, but it's going to be more of if they win out, because they still got to beat LSU. If they win out, I think Alabama has a case to be ranked higher than a 1-loss team with a cupcake schedule, which means I think Alabama should be hosting either, because I was just kind of doing a little bit of just mess around with like the college football bracketology and stuff like that. I think Alabama should either host Penn State or Indiana. And I know they're going to have to play on the road against one of those 2 teams. Or Texas. Those are the only 3 teams that I have Alabama playing against in the college football playoffs to start off the first round.
Yeah, to hit on this,
I think the home field advantage is going to be.
To hit on, let me hit on this real quick. To hit on this Penn State football schedule, which Christian on the line with Christian calling in from Cali. I mean, look at Penn State's schedule. I mean, he's not joking. I mean, you call it the tough teams right here. All right, they were actually trailing to Bowling Green earlier in the season. I don't know if you guys know this, but Bowling Green was actually leading at this point in time. Then they beat Kent State. That's a game where they racked up like 700 yards of offense or something crazy like that. They're able to beat Illinois by 2 touchdowns, beat UCLA. They went to USC. USC was actually winning this game. It went into overtime, right? Remember that game. And then against Wisconsin, they win 28-13. And then they lose by 7 at home to Ohio State. So looking at Penn State's remaining schedule, Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, you know what? I would imagine they win the rest of those games. So Penn State, where are they going to finish? If they win 4 more games, they're going to finish 11-1. I don't know if they'd make the I guess it depends on what happens with Indiana. But, wow, they could be – yeah, I mean, just like Christian was saying, they could make the college football playoffs with that type of a schedule. They haven't played anybody. And that team's super overrated in my opinion. What else you got, Christian? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, man. I think it's very crazy to give them that high of a ranking. They haven't played anybody. They haven't looked good in any of their wins, you know. And every big moment Penn State has had since I don't even know the name of their head coach, since he's been there.
James Franklin.
He's choked in every single – James Franklin, there we go. He's choked in every single one of those games, every single one. And then he got lucky with 1 win against Ohio State, and he's living off that.
Yeah.
I don't think Penn State is not good. They're an average team that plays on a weak schedule.
Yeah.
That's all they are. And Indiana's the same way. But for some reason, the Big Ten loves giving these teams these easy schedules. So when Ohio State beats them, it makes them look good. Penn State should not have been ranked that high. I think Indiana's not that great either, because if I had to put my money on a 2-loss Alabama team or a 2-loss LSU team to 100%. Go into Indiana Hoosier Stadium, I'm coming out with a multiple score win. That's my prediction. So that's just kind of where I'm at, and I don't feel like it's fair, because if you want to put the best teams in, you need to put the best teams in. And Indiana is not one of the top. They're not even a top 10 team. Penn State is not a top 10 team. I'll take Notre Dame over Penn State any day of the week. And they haven't played a hard schedule either.
Yeah, no, they really haven't. We're looking at Yeah, I appreciate the call, Christian. Thank you so much. I'll answer another line, man. Take it easy. All right, Christian calling in from Cali. Appreciate the call. Call line is open, 205-850-1994. Here's a look at Indiana's schedule. I mean, we talked about this at the beginning of the show. I mean, this schedule is absolutely super light. These guys are 9-0 on the season. I think they're 9-0, right? Let's see if you go up 9-0. I like this website, fbsschedules.com. They're 9-0. You tell me they're difficult games. FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte. This schedule's, I mean, we talked about this. I think we rated it like a 2 or something like that. You know what happened? When they beat Nebraska by this score, people got like really excited. But other than that, what else stands out? Seriously. What would you even say is their best win? What is their best win? I don't even know. I guess, was Washington their best win? I guess I wonder what the Big Ten or at all the big whatever conference, what their tiebreaker schedule is in terms of if Indiana finishes with 1 loss and so does Penn State, because those two teams don't play each other. Yeah, Indiana hasn't played a close game, but still, look at this schedule. I mean, look, I know we cover Alabama on here, but if Alabama played this schedule too, what would be the close games? I don't know. Super light. Super, super light. All right, call line is open. 205-850-1994. 11:30, we got the press conference will start. We'll carry them right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here, talking some college football with me as we continue to navigate towards Alabama's next game, which will be against LSU. And look, there's so much at stake in this game. But the more that I get, I guess after watching LSU and looking at their offense and looking at their defense, I honestly feel more confident than like a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, to be honest, I was a little bit nervous about this LSU game. Not so much. And rarely, I never pick against Alabama. That's not like being fancy. I just feel that they're going to win every single game. Very rarely will you come and see me pick against Alabama. A couple weeks ago, if you would have asked me Alabama versus LSU, I probably would have taken LSU. And then I watched LSU play Texas A&M. Not that I lost any type of respect for them. I just felt that their defense has holes in it. Now, their offense is going to score, and that's going to be the challenging thing. And that, if you haven't been to Death Valley, that place is absolutely crazy. I would imagine it's louder than Neyland Stadium. So, and I think a lot revolves around the quarterback play, clearly, right? And this is kind of the worst case scenario for any of this is like right now, Coach Kalen DeBoer, his approval rating is so high, and rightfully so. I mean, you look at everything that he's done for the program, you look how he's recruited, all that stuff. I think it got kind of choppy after the Tennessee loss. And before people knew how good Vandy was, people were, saying stuff about him, whatever. Everything was like hypercritical. The danger of losing this game, the rankings need to be updated on this page. The danger of losing this game, a couple things. If you lose a game like this, what happens is, and this is kind of like the worst case scenario, is you start to lose momentum, right? And I think Alabama has really good momentum, and the bye week couldn't have come at a better time, right? But if you lose this game against LSU, the coaching challenge will be do not lose the locker room and continue to keep these kids playing. And you don't do what Mike Norvell did and kind of play the entitlement and why even play the games and all that stuff and start to boo-hoo about, maybe not making the playoffs or whatever. Like, you keep them dialed in the rest of the season. Because if you lose the locker room, you still have Oklahoma on the road and you still have Auburn. Now, the worst case scenario is you lose to LSU and you lose to Auburn, and then recruits starts seeping into the heads of the recruits that Coach Kalen DeBoer isn't the guy, which clearly, I mean, hasn't even been a season. So you win this game at all costs, and you continue to ride out that momentum, because if you lose this game, you probably lose the locker room. People start reading the rat poison. You start thinking about transferring. People start sliding into DMs, right? Hey, look, Coach Kalen DeBoer can't win on the road. He's 0-3 now in SEC play. Come over here. You'll get a better opportunity. All this stuff, right? So that's what will happen. And that didn't happen in the first seasons with first-year coaches, right? Like, we're in a whole different planet. Like, I would imagine that coaches are still sliding into other guys' DMs right now. So that's kind of the worst-case scenario. Now, I'm confident that they win this game. It's going to be ultra challenging. Every game in the SEC is hard, but I feel more confident. 831, let's do it. Hey, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, what's up, Kyle? It's Case from Tampa.
Case, what's up, man? Good morning to you. I appreciate you calling in, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey, appreciate it, Kyle. Yeah, the LSU game, man. It's just both teams, LSU and Alabama. It's a must-win game. You know, it's an elimination game, and LSU's coming off the loss. You know, Alabama's coming off a bye with the big win over Missouri, and you know, it's just like you said earlier. We've really underutilized our run game. I mean, Jam Miller is like, I know he didn't have that many carries, but he still averages like 6 yards a carry. And I just feel like if we play up to the standard of that first half we played against Georgia, I really feel like it's a comfortable game. You know, it's going to be hard, but the way we played, the way the defense played against Missouri, and I know what our potential is. We know the kind of talent we have on our team. You know, I'm excited for the game. You know, obviously it's the SEC. Anybody can win. And we were getting hated on real hard for the loss to Vandy, and the Tennessee game is obviously a tough loss, but it just shows you the SEC is the hardest conference to play in. People are going to knock on it because everybody's beating up on each other right now. Everybody's got 1 or 2 losses or more. But I feel confident that if we can win this game, and then I'm confident we'll be able to win out the rest of the way. And I think most people agree with that, you know?
Yeah, I think so too. That's why, I mean, there's so much riding on the lines of this game, and I think you've had another bye week to prepare. I'm curious to catch his press conference here at 11:30. It'll kick off. We'll cover it right here on Bama Football on YouTube. If you're out there, just be patient, and we'll pipe it in as soon as they go live. Kind of what's the message? And because you do have a lot of momentum following this Missouri game. A lot of teams that you needed to lose started to lose, and there's so much to play for still. So now it's about coaching, getting these guys not to buy into the rat poison. And most importantly, even though you are favored like by Vegas and we're talking like we're confident, keep that out of the locker room. Like, you're the underdog.
Yeah.
Nobody believes that you can beat LSU, right?
The Vegas line has been so it's all money, you know. It's been so inaccurate for a lot of Alabama games and most SEC games anyway. But you got to keep and credit to Kirby Smart. Even when they've gone back-to-back national championships, or even after they won their first one, he's always, and that comes from Saban. He always has helped keep his team keep the mentality that nobody. It's funny to hear from Kirby because they have this team full of 5 stars in every single position and depth everywhere, and they go, nobody believes in us. Nobody thinks it's like, come on, Kirby.
No, I know.
Georgia. Everybody thought you were going to win.
I know, but he says that so many times it starts to go into my mind, and then I'm like, damn, maybe he's right. Like, you know, but you're right. It's just because he plays that underdog card so perfectly. And he does get that from Coach Saban, and that's what made Coach Saban such a great coach, is getting able to get the best out of each of those guys. I was actually listening to the Coach Saban clip this morning, And he said, when you want to be the best, you don't have a lot of choices because it takes what it takes.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, like
100%.
that's exactly right. Because if you want to be good at any single thing that you do, the only way to get things done is to physically do it. And it's like, it takes what it takes. So get those guys to play with that underdog mentality, and it takes a win, right? So focus on this game, block out the rat poison. Coach Saban, I'm sure from time to time he would look at the playoffs, but if you would think about Coach Saban and you would ask him about the playoffs, he'd be like, I didn't even know that they were seeding the teams today. I think he was so laser focused on LSU, because what difference does it make whether we're going to, make a whole celebration tomorrow about the playoff rankings, because that's what we do as content creators. But really, it doesn't matter at all. It's fairy tale tomorrow.
Got one out.
Tomorrow is all make believe. We all know that, right? I mean, literally, it has nothing to do with the final outcome, because if you lose against, and I say this all the time, it doesn't take Alabama long to lose momentum. They lose to LSU, oh my God, we're going to have to go through the whole, thing again with Coach Kalen DeBoer. So just don't lose.
100%.
What else you got? Anything else, Case?
Two things. I'm curious. I want to know, I'm sure somebody has the stat line. I want to know what Kalen DeBoer's record is after bye weeks. Obviously the first thing I think about is, we had the bye week against Georgia, and we came out with our hair on fire and played great. The second half was a little tough, but I think our defense is playing a lot better. And the other thing that I was wondering, I'm 90% sure he's not going to be playing because of the injury, but it's a really tough loss. Keon Sabb getting hurt.
Yeah.
Did they specify on his injury and how long he was? Because that guy's a baller, man.
Yeah, and we love Bray Hubbard, and he did play well in the opportunities that he had. I think that they just said for an extended amount of time. The thing is, like, if you were to fracture your foot or have a small fracture or whatever, it's going to take us a while to get kind of back in action. You don't have Jeff Allen. So, like, these guys have access. I've been to the Sports and Science Center here. It's right next to the indoor facility. It's amazing. I think Josh Pate is famous for saying that they have stuff in there that NASA don't even have. And if you think about all the players in the past, right? I started laughing when he said that. He's right. And when you start to look at some of the past Alabama players that have been banged up, dinged up, whatever it is, all those guys have made really quick recovery times. I think the only guy that hasn't really made a quick recovery, and this probably tells you the severity of the injury, is Jalen Hell, the wide receiver, who I think is like, I don't know. Yeah. Someone said that he was like in a jersey, not in pads, but like with the team, which is amazing news. But I mean, like, if anybody can get you back to health, it's Jeff Allen. So they didn't put a timeline on it, probably to keep people off base, but also because Jeff Allen can get you back.
I mean, look at Cole Adam. I mean, he came back. We thought he was going to be out, and he came right back. He was in the brace, and he made some plays too. But then he got another injury, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they didn't really even give a time stamp on him either, because maybe he comes back with a robotic arm and a robotic leg. He'll just be RoboCop, right?
He's going to be a cyborg.
Yeah, I don't know. That he's tough, man. He's had a really good year. Really happy for him. Anything else, Case?
Nothing much. I just wanted to check in. I don't want to do any more score predictions. Don't bring up the prognosticator prediction percentage when we're doing the rat poison. It's bad luck charm, Kyle.
All right, man. Yeah, I hear you, man. Thanks for calling in, Case. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate it. Roll Tide.
Yeah, I know the Bionic Man. Coming up at here in about 12 minutes, we'll go to the University of Alabama, the campus, and we will have Coach, I would imagine it's either Coach Sheridan or Kane Womack. They usually rotate whoever's first. And then around 12, you get Coach Kalen DeBoer up at the podium. We'll cover that right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here, kicking in with me today on this fine Monday as we get set for Alabama and LSU. Yeah, I mean, the weather's been fantastic. I can't wait for this weekend's game. There's a lot. I haven't even looked at other games on the college football slate. This is the game. So much so that College Game Day is going to Baton Rouge. If you've ever been to a game in Baton Rouge, it is something else. I mean, I had never experienced it until a couple years ago. I went over there. That was still, the last time I went there, Ed Orgeron was still the head football coach over there. And I went over there, and I was really blown away Call line's still open if you want to chat with me for a few more minutes before we go to the press conference. I was blown away. Look, we have a huge tailgate here in Tuscaloosa. Like, I have friends who have tailgates, and they go heavy, right? Like, here in Tuscaloosa, everything is marked off. If you've ever been to the tailgates, everything is marked off perfectly. You got the food trucks and, the different areas where the band participates, and then everything underneath Denny Chimes. Well, at LSU, same thing. It just seemed like it was been, and I obviously went for Alabama LSU game, and I think the teams were ranked within the top 5 when they played each other. It was crazy. I'm serious. Like, I would have bought an LSU shirt and partied all night long if LSU would have won. It was the biggest party in the country. The food is good. It was just the traffic. It was crazy. So there's a lot going on. It's a very challenging stadium to play at. And one thing that continues to sit on my mind too is Coach Kalen DeBoer is, and I know people are like, he wins everywhere, and he is winning here, right? 6-2, 3-2 in SEC play. You haven't coached in the SEC, and you haven't coached in the SEC at this level. It's going to take some time for everybody to get accustomed to this weekly grind of college football. Like, this is we've never experienced this type of season. So Coach Kalen DeBoer, I don't think he's coached at LSU before, right? Like, in that stadium. He's 0-2 against the state of Tennessee so far. And LSU will present challenges, of course. A lot on the line in this game. You have to have your big-time playmaker step up. And let's think of the injuries kind of going in. I think you have Cole Adams, who's, I don't know. I have no idea what his status is. Keon Sabb, I would imagine he's still out. What are some other? I keep thinking that Jaden Roberts, the right guard, he's injured. He's never listed as injured, but he doesn't look 100%. His grade has kind of been trailing off. The whole right side of Alabama's offensive line scares me to death. Maybe that's why they have a tight end and a running back on that side as well. And a lot of people like him, Bray Hubbard, what they saw from him against Missouri. The thing about Bray Hubbard, what I liked about him in the safety position, he has a nose for the football. He gets a lot of tackles. In coverage, we'll see. He'll be tested. He 100% will be tested. He's probably the biggest hitter, too, in the secondary. I would imagine he's probably the biggest hitter, right? I haven't really thought of a score prediction for this game. I think I mentioned earlier in the show that I would imagine that this game has a lot of points. I don't think it'll be like something crazy, like 60 to whatever. I think it'll probably be like, 37 to 28 or 37 to 31 or something like that. And who has to come with it is Graham Nicholson as well. You got to be able to kick in big-time games like this. Special teams, you have to be tight. That's why it's really important that you have a great specialist in James Burnap. People don't talk about the specialists. We don't ever talk about special teams. Yesterday, Will Riker was off for the Vikings. Going into that stadium, it's a lot different than playing, in, I don't know, Miami of Ohio or Bowling Green. Like, a lot on the line in these games, right? So you kind of looked at the specialists, and I think I earned a little bit more respect for Graham Nicholson in this last game against Missouri. He came in and hit 2 really good field goals, right? One from 47, one from, 31 or something like that. But this is a whole different ball game. Lance Hunter comments inside the comment box. We need Red Morgan replacement. Oh, man. Who are you going to go to? You have Devontae Smith and Red Morgan. Those are the guys that play that Husky position. You have Damani Jackson. You have Xavier Brown. Xavier Brown, for a freshman, he's been bad. I would imagine he's a freshman All-American. How could he not be? The guy's played in over, close to 500 snaps as a true freshman at the corner position, the most difficult position to play in all of college football, going against some of the most talented wide receivers in all of the land. They just haven't played a quarterback that can really eat them up. Jimmy Williams, James Burnham isn't too far off. You're not lying. J.K. Scott and James Burnham, they're very comparable. J.K. Scott is like the GOAT, but James Burnham, damn, he's great. You take him off the team, I mean, you start to look to next year's puncher. You're like, who's going to step up in that spot? Wayne's World, I 100% agree, man. Zabian has been burned. If somebody was to make a tape, like a collection of the times that Zabian Brown got beat, but the quarterback didn't connect, I'm not exaggerating. It would probably be, I don't know, 11, 12 times. I haven't really seen Damani Jackson get beat over the top. I've seen Red Morgan get beat. I've seen Zabian Brown get beat. And this isn't stuff that we don't know. We see it all the time when we watch the game. Keon Sabb got beat. Keon Sabb and Malachi got beat together by Pavia. Coming up at 11:30, we got the press conferences for this week. As soon as they go live, I'll bring that to you right here on Bama Football on YouTube. So probably just a few minutes away from that. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining the program. If you have super chatted, if you're a fan funder, I appreciate it. I do go live during the actual games as a watch along, and then you can catch my show every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time. You can also find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. I've also added some different podcast venues on our YouTube channel, as we will talk more Alabama basketball this season, considering that the basketball team, one of the best in the entire country. So remember, Alabama basketball has a game tonight, 8 p.m. on ESPNU against UNC Asheville. So a lot to cover, a lot to track. I can't wait to watch the basketball team. I really can't. Like, I love basketball. I love all sports. I got a lot of respect for Nate Oates and what he's been able to do for Alabama basketball over the last 6 seasons. It takes time, but this was a guy who was able to step in and really transform the basketball program to a national contender in a really short time, right? I mean, 5 years, if you would have told me, like, I would have never, and Alabama fans want their basketball team to be very good. That's why I'm like, this new stadium, I'm excited about it. But remember, when they make the new stadium here, or the new arena, it's going to be much smaller, and you'll never get a chance to see the team if you don't have season tickets. Coleman Coliseum, it's hard to get a ticket in there now, but it's a big venue. So as soon as these guys go live, it should be here in the next few minutes. I'll bring that to you right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a quick break. You'll see the commercial logo on the screen, and then I'll come right back, and then we'll get into the press conference. So just stand by. Be right back. This is Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here. Give me 1 second. Be right back here.
Morning, everybody. Coach Sheridan will go ahead and begin straight to questions. Just raise your hand and leave them up for a minute. We'll go ahead and get calling. Colin, we'll start with you on the left.
Hey, Nick. Obviously, Jalen had, a lot of success against LSU last year, kind of his coming out party. I'm curious about how have you seen him kind of approach this week? How have you, I guess, the 2 weeks kind of build up to such an important game, kind of on his end?
I think, his approach has been just daily improvement, being where your feet are. I think that's the message for everybody in the building, is to just be where your feet are and focus on being the best you can be each and every day in practice and preparation. And then that's how you best prepare yourself to go play well on Saturday. So I don't think his approach has changed, in that regard. And I think it's been steady throughout the season, just his consistency and his routine and his preparation. I think that gives you the best chance to play well, in the game and have the most confidence headed into the game when, you lean back on your routines, your preparation, your training. And so I haven't seen that change based on the opponent, throughout this season, not just this week, but in previous weeks as well.
All the way in the back on the left. Hey, Coach, just with one of the biggest games of the year coming up this weekend, what's the advantages of having this bye where it's situated right now going into this week?
Well, I think it gives you an opportunity to maybe heal up a little bit. I think, the advantages are the same for both teams, obviously. So anytime you have a little bit of a time, to reflect, you can get healthy. You can identify things that you need to work on. You maybe get a hair bit more time, just a preparation for the opponent. But they're on the same schedule that we're on. And so, ultimately it'll be whoever used the time the best, prepared the best. And we're still right in the middle of that. These next few days certainly are important. The practices, the preparation, the finalizing of the plan from the staff. And so that'll really be the focus here the next few days. And so obviously, use the time to try to, help individuals get better, help your unit get better, help your team get better. And we're still, have preparation to be had here the next few days.
Tony, second row on the left.
They rank top 10 in sacks. Just what have you seen from their pass rush, and how do you kind of combat that, without giving away too much of your game plan?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they're very disruptive. I think that jumps off the film. The production of the front seven players, both the edges, linebackers, interior players, they have had a lot of success that way. And I think the way that you try to, counter that is similar no matter who you're going against, is to try to stay out of those situations that are pretty obvious passing situations where they really can pin their ears back and rush. And so being efficient and effective on first and second down will be important. Staying out of third and long situations will be important. I think that's the case anytime you're playing a very disruptive front. Is to stay in situations that, make you unpredictable as far as run and pass and what you're trying to accomplish. And so, making sure that we're balanced and staying out of some of those situations where, it's friendly for good pass rushers. I think that'll be important for us.
Got a question for Nick on the right.
Yeah, last open week, you guys then went into the Georgia game and had a really strong start. What do you want to replicate in terms of how guys are preparing and in terms of how they approach just starting the game?
Well, we always want to start fast. I think that's really important, particularly when you're on the road. I think that is helpful. There's no doubt about it. I don't think anything that occurred in the past relative to previous bye weeks or previous games will have any impact on this one. But I would say, the importance of starting fast in a game is certainly important. Like I said, particularly when you're on the road and you're dealing with the crowd and those types of things, to be able to get off to a good start, I think is always beneficial, but certainly when you're on the road.
Katie, front left.
You kind of just answered what I was going to ask a little bit about playing on the road. Y'all played well on the road first game against Wisconsin, but not as well the last two games. Just kind of maybe what worked well in that Wisconsin game and maybe what have been some of the struggles on the road that y'all are kind of hoping to move past this week?
Well, I think, pretty simply, we just played better. We executed better. We did a better job as coaches. And so certainly that's a point of emphasis, to execute and play cleaner. I think that, you talk about some of the personnel that they have, some of the schemes that they have. When you can execute and do your job a little bit more consistently, sometimes you keep them out of those situations where the advantage goes to the defense. And so when you look at those opportunities we've had on the road, we need to play better. And I think that comes down to simple execution. I think making sure as a staff we're putting them in a position to play fast and play confident, because you are dealing with other factors in the game, crowd noise, etc. So making sure that we keep it simple enough so our guys can execute and do their job, I think that'll be important.
Yeah, hey coach, you just mentioned crowd noise. What did you maybe learn from that Tennessee game that can help you guys going into the road game at Baton Rouge?
Yeah, that we need to be better. I think that's what was evident. We obviously didn't start the game off the right way relative to the noise and the communication. We've continued to work on that, as a group, as a staff, to make sure that what we're asking them to do in those moments, that they can execute it at a high level. And so I thought there were moments in the game the last time we were in an environment like this where we were fine, we settled in and were able to communicate, but certainly we didn't start the game off the way that we would like. And so, I think the message was to learn and grow from those experiences so that you can do better the next time you get in those environments and atmospheres.
Do you have any other questions for Coach Sheridan?
Okay, roll tide.
Coach Womack. We'll have Coach make his opening statement, and then we'll take questions. Whenever you're ready, Coach.
Okay, looking back on the bye week, you always want to do a review, of kind of where you are, the things that you need to improve, and the things that you're doing well. I thought, coming out of the Missouri game, there were things that I think we are taking steps in the right direction. I think our players have a real emphasis to take the ball off of people right now. I think we've gotten 10 takeaways in the last 3 games, which is really encouraging. I'm seeing an emphasis in that from our coaches and players in practice, and those things are showing up on game day. I think, limiting explosive plays, certainly, we were able to do that, whatever that was, a week and a half ago. We gave up 4 explosives, and really 3 of those 4 were in the last series of the game when we had some young guys in that gave up some explosive runs, and so we certainly got to get those things cleaned up. That was not nearly to the standard. We were fortunate to get a 4th down stop there at the end with some older guys that have a lot of pride and wanted to get back in the game. So. And then we had 15 explosives as an offense. And then I thought, 3rd downs, that's been an area that we've been deficient in, and I think we're taking steps in the right direction there. Some things that we're doing fundamentally, some things that we're doing schematically, just making tweaks so that we can give our players the best chance to be able to get people off the field and get the ball back to our offense. So looking into the bye week, those were things that we were able to do and kind of build off of from a momentum standpoint. I like the demeanor of our players right now. I think they're in a really good position. I think they are very hungry to get back out on the field. Some of them have done a tremendous job in getting their bodies healthy and bodies back. I think our training staff is the best in the country, the best that I've ever been around. And credit to our players and training staff for having a sense of urgency in the bye week to get ourselves in as healthy a position as we can heading into the last 4 games of the regular season and then beyond. So looking ahead to LSU, this is a very explosive football team. A lot of athletes that are on the field. I think Coach Kelly is obviously. His resume speaks for itself, and the success that he's had at multiple places and the way that he manages his football team. Have a lot of respect for Joe Sloan, their offensive coordinator I've known for a number of years, and he's really done a great job kind of wherever he's been. And Frank Wilson was my position coach at one time in college, and a number of guys on their offensive staff that I think really do a really good job. And then from an offensive standpoint, I think, you can talk about the quarterback all day long. I think Nussmeier, he's a coach's kid. You can tell he's been very well trained, knows where to go with the ball, has great answers, is probably, to me up there, with the Carson Becks of the world in terms of his ability to see the field and make great decisions. He's as good as we've seen this year. Aggressive with the ball. I know sometimes that has gotten them in trouble, but it's also, created a lot of explosive plays that they've been able to make because he's aggressive, and certainly he's got players on the perimeter and in their tight end room that will go up and get the football. Even if guys are covered, he's going to throw the ball, and so we're going to have to make plays and contested catches and do a great job against an explosive team with a great quarterback, an awesome system, and one of the best environments, in college football. So be a great challenge for us, one that I think our players are certainly looking forward to on Saturday.
Yeah, Kane, do you think that the recent, momentum that this defense has is just a result of guys understanding your system better and just them developing, or what would you attribute it to?
I think, I think the answer is probably yes in a number of facets. I think our guys, certainly there's going to be a learning curve, right, and some of the things that, that guys are understanding our system on a more dynamic level and recognizing, when to take chances and when not to take chances. I think that's a big piece of it. And then, you've got some guys that have experience, and maybe they have experience in different systems, but then you have some guys that have little experience and they're starting to grow and learn. And so I like where we're headed. I think we are in a position to be able to continue to improve defensively and get better as the season goes on. I told our players this the other day. You look at college football right now. right now it's hard for everybody. Winning is hard in the SEC. It always has been, but I would argue now more than ever, finding ways to get better as a football team ultimately is going to make the difference in the last part of the season here in terms of who is considered a successful football team. And so I think we're trending in the right direction there, but, long way to go in some areas.
Far left, Chase.
Kyron Lacey's been pretty explosive for LSU. He had a big game against A&M a couple weeks ago, even though they lost. What do you see in his talent, and how do you try to contain that guy?
Yeah, I remember Kyron, when he was in the Sun Belt. He was playing at Louisiana my first year as a head coach at South Alabama, and then I think he transferred maybe the year after in 2022. Long physical presence, does a great job with the ball in the air. I think he makes contested catches. I think he's grown so much as a route runner and really, someone that you can tell that Nussmeier really trusts to get the ball to, even in, situations where he's got body on body to go make a play for him. So very impressed with his skill set. He's got all the tools and can run and make contested catches and the makings of a great receiver.
So right up in the middle here, Mike. Microphone coming to you.
Seems like Jordan Renaud's played a bigger role lately. Just what does he bring to the table, and how do you decide when to put him on the field versus LT or Jamarian?
Yeah, I'm excited about Jordan Renaud. There's a number of young guys that I'm excited about, but that's certainly one to point towards. I think, Jordan is continuing to grow in our defense and understanding what to do. We talk about those things, right? Knowing when to take chances, when to take risks, all that goes on the back end, that goes up front, and then just doing your job at a more consistent level than maybe where he was at the beginning of the season. Credit him. You've got two players, in Jamarian Latham and LT Overton that are playing good football right now, and so for him to elevate his game to be in the conversation and find ways, for us to have to find ways to get him on the field, I think speaks to who he is and the work that he's put in, but also I think dude's got a really bright future.
All the way back, Ryan.
Coach, the last time you guys walked off the field, it was a shutout. How does that carry over, and what's your message to the guys? Just to take pieces, or do you flush it?
Well, I think I think one of the cool things about that shutout was the way in which it was done. I thought our older players, we were literally having to hold them back in that last drive, right, to not, want to go out on the field and preserve a shutout. I think that's awesome when a group of defensive players have pride and wanting to get stops. And, certainly they've gone through adverse situations. We have as a team, we have as a defense, but knowing that at the end of the day, it's not okay to give up touchdowns. It's not okay, at any point, right, to give up scores and yards and all those things. And so I thought that was a great momentum builder for our players to know, hey, one, we were able to get a shutout, we were able to get the stop, but also I thought it was a real opportunity for some older players and coaches to be able to demand the standard out of some younger players that we are going to have to count on, as the season goes. We've already counted on some of those players due to injuries. So I think certainly anytime you can get a shutout, especially in the SEC, I think you can build off of that momentum.
Go to Tony here in the second row on the left.
What have you seen from their tackle tandem? And then also, I think A&M was probably the first team to really exploit them. What can you kind of learn off of the A&M game to maybe replicate that?
Well, I think, I think A&M, they do a great job on defense. Schematically, they're really good. Their personnel up front is as good as I've seen. Those guys do a really good job in one-on-one matchups, and I thought they did a great job of finding and creating one-on-one matchups based off of how they situated their personnel and were able to win, a number of those one-on-ones. And so that'll be the challenge for us. I thought they did some really good things that you can look at and say, okay, how does that fit what we do, and then kind of build off of it from there. But you kind of take little pieces from everybody. I thought, you look, Ole Miss played them really well for the vast majority of the game and then just couldn't seem to get off the field at the end. I think, having both personnel groupings based off of the groupings that they have on the field. They've got a lot of different things that they do out of their personnels with 12 and different tight end groupings that come on the field, and then also things from a scheme standpoint to be able to, have answers against a very prolific offense, I think is going to be critical at the end.
Stand left, go to Colin.
Hey, Kane. We saw a little bit of what Quay Rousseau could do with a little bit of.
Who's that?
Quay Rousseau.
Quay.
When he was a little bit, healthier and kind of saw the flashes, saw those moments. How has he been able to kind of cement himself as a Wolf linebacker? What does he do that kind of you want at the position?
Well, it's really the Wolf is a really dynamic position. I mean, you ask a lot out of really kind of both the edge player to the field and to the boundary, the husky, the nickel position for us in terms of what they do from a coverage perspective, but fitting in the box and blitzing off the edge and playing different man and zone oriented coverages. And then to the boundary, right, that Wolf position, I mean, you're asking that guy to play a 5 technique and a 9 technique to be able to slant down inside into the interior B gaps or A gaps, to fold back inside in the run fit at times, to drop out in coverage, to cover backs and tight ends out of the backfield. So it's a very dynamic skill set. Quay is strong at the point of attack. He's got enough athleticism to be able to make space tackles. And so really, he has all the physical traits for a good Wolf, but more so, right, the guy has really taken ownership in terms of what to do schematically and how he fits within the framework of the defense. And I think he's really probably taken a lot of steps in terms of growth to, answer, Nick's question earlier there, like players that are growing within, the framework of what we're doing defensively. You could certainly point to Quay Rousseau on taking steps in the right direction.
Jump back to the right, go to Matt.
I was curious about your thoughts and how do you think defensive coaches across the league kind of feel about the order from the league to kind of knock off with the fake injuries?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, ultimately, when you are in a situation where you are hurt in a game and you have to go down, you can't come off the field when these offenses are going too fast. They're watching your sideline. They're aware of. If all of a sudden you try to make a personnel change when you don't have, the iron cross by the officials. And so, I think the rule is still the rule, right? But, you have some of these instances, right, that they're maybe trying to crack down on, and ultimately it doesn't really change what we're telling our guys. Our guys need to understand that, if they're hurt in a game, never come off the field. You always have to go down in that situation so that we can make the proper substitution for that player.
Go to the left here, third row.
You mentioned that Nussmeier is an aggressive player, but at times he has disadvantages. What have you seen on film that you believe this defense could limit him at times?
Well, I think I think he is an aggressive player, right? And sometimes you live by the sword and die by the sword a little bit. And we're a team that is certainly going to be focused on taking the ball off of people, and we've got to be able to show enough looks and pictures and change some things up and, put eyes on the quarterback and play man coverage and do all the different things to be able to create some confusion that we've been able to create with some really good quarterbacks. We were able to do that, even looking back to Carson Beck, who is a great quarterback and has had a hard time, hasn't turned the ball over very much. But I think if you can find creative ways to give them different looks and pictures, right, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to take the ball away. But at the same time now, I mean, this dude, has made a lot of plays being the guy he is. He's an aggressive player, I mean, you think about, Brett Favre threw a lot of picks in his career, but he also made a hell of a lot of plays, right? And this guy has really done some similar things in that regard. And so some of that you live with a little bit as an offense, but from a defensive perspective, we need to make sure that, taking the ball off of people is really the identity of who we are as a defense. And so that needs to show up on Saturday night.
All right, we've got 2 questions left. Let's start with Eugene.
Coach, you said that you like the demeanor that you're seeing from some of your players. Can you go into a little more detail about what you're seeing and from who?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think for me, I think our players have learned from the experiences that they've had this season, and there is a sense of urgency to get better every single day and not waste reps in practice. And so for our guys to have that understanding of, okay, I did this early in the season in practice and this showed up on game day, be it from a positive standpoint or from an area where we have to get better. And so I think our players are drawing upon those positive and negative experiences to have better practice habits. And then I think some of those practice habits are showing up on game day, and our coaches are doing a really good job of pointing those things out, that ultimately you're going to get rewarded by what you put out on the field. And so, somebody, I saw a quote the other day of something about the success that you want is in the work that you are avoiding. You know what I mean? And so the work that you're willing to put in, right, is going to reap the result of success that ultimately you want. And so are our players willing to do that day in and day out when it gets hard at the end of the season? I think right now our guys got a really good demeanor about that.
Finish up with Alex here on the right.
Talked a lot about the explosive plays and the receivers they have, but how tough is it as a coordinator when they've got Mason Taylor at the tight end position who they can really go to in crunch time?
Yeah.
What does he do for them?
I think he is as good a tight end as we've seen this year. I mean, I think you can tell their quarterback trusts him. I mean, another guy that when the game is on the line, he continues to show up in those big moments. He will make contested catches. Just even being body on body, the guy can make those contested, type throw and catch, which is ultimately what is hard about covering a tight end, right? You've got some 6'6" guy that you're covering with a linebacker or a defensive back that ultimately, a good quarterback's going to throw away from leverage and he's going to be able to come down with the ball. And so I think the dude, takes pride, obviously, in not coming off the field. You can tell that's kind of a thing, right? They constantly are keeping him on the field and having different groupings and packages around him. But tight ends, man, when you have a good tight end that can do things in the run game well enough and then ultimately be dynamic in the passing game, that's why those guys are so valuable, in the professional league right now, because they're rare, but they're really hard to defend, for a number of reasons. So we'll have our work cut out for us.
All right, thank you, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys. Roll Tide.
We'll go ahead and have Coach make his opening statement, and we'll take questions. Leave your hands up for a second.
All right, good morning. Had a great bye week. Our guys get a chance to work on the things that we felt we needed to work on as a team, get a little healthier and in a good spot. The guys got back to work yesterday with a good practice, high energy, very intentional on what the job is that we're up against going into LSU here, and getting a head start on that, whether it be last week or yesterday. So we'll be back at it tomorrow morning, and got an exciting week, preparing for a good football team. So one update, just want to give, because I know I haven't had a chance to, just with the timing of everything, with when we've met Cole Adams with his injury, just an update there. He'll be out for the year. So we had to deal with that, and last week, and unfortunately, just because Cole's a guy that pours everything into it, had an injury earlier in the season. Honestly, at the time, probably thought that was going to be something more significant as far as the time frame with the first one. Just seeing the effort he put into that first injury, you really found out a lot about who he was as a person, as a player, just the toughness he had. And unfortunately, he had another injury here now, and lower body injury, and so we'll be done with the season here this year. Questions?
All right, start with Charlie on the far right.
Just with Cole, and you also have Jalen out, just what do you do from a receiver standpoint to kind of, replenish that depth?
Yeah, and the season has the flows, right? The guys that are in, the guys that are out. A couple weeks ago, we had multiple guys out with K-Law and Kobe, and that's where Cole got more playing time as well as some others. And so, again, unfortunately, we aren't at full strength there, but just much like most of the teams across the country are. So you're shorthanded, but you mix and match, and you continue to find the versatility in guys and put them into spots and coach them up. And there's a lot of cross training that happens within positions, and receivers one of them. So guys that can play inside and outside both, we're going to utilize them to their fullest potential. But it's always all hands on deck, especially this time of the year.
Chase on the far left.
What were your thoughts about the edict from the SEC on Friday with the penalties for defenses faking injuries, and how much do you think faking injuries really impacts the integrity of the game?
Well, I guess the rules have been the rules, and so just having to find another level of enforcement, I think, and seriousness about it is what's happening here. And so from our end, I already talked to our players, our staff. It doesn't change what we do, because we go about it, and if you are hurt, and you need to stay down, especially if it's substitutions that need to be made. You need to be looked at, but you can put yourself in some tough positions if you really truly are hurt, and that's I really feel like with what our team does and how we operate, how it's going to continue to be. So I've been on the other end where there's situations at the end of the game or whatever it might be that get a little frustrating, and that can happen at any time. But the rules have been the rules, and so we'll just continue to go about business as we always have here in our program.
Go, Nick. Right.
Yeah, now that you know that Cole's out for the year, do you want to have just one punt returner, or how do you want to handle that position moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, you will go with, who you feel best about, obviously. We need to continue to always build depth. Said this at the beginning of the year to our special teams, coordinator with Jay Nunez. He does a great job, but also just in developing returners. It isn't just your upperclassmen that you can do it, you have confidence in, but it's also developing younger guys. And you have seen just as much as anyone has that we have younger guys that we've been putting out there with Bach and Ryan, and we need to continue to develop more and more, not just for today, not just for the next couple games or the rest of the season, but also for the future, years to come. And so just over and over, you just can't catch enough kicks, punts, and then all the situations that come along with it, when to field it, when to fair catch it, the communication that happens, just being comfortable back there. It's reps and reps and reps of that. And so we're going to always continue to develop more and more guys. And, kind of who you've been seeing is who we'll start out with Bach and Ryan. But, whether we pick just one or the other, I think there's also pieces with the flow of the game, and just things like that might dictate, or even a situational call that we want to where we have a certain guy out there.
Jump back over to the left, Katie.
Nick just talked about the importance of starting fast on the road. Vanderbilt, it was a pick six first offensive possession. Tennessee 3 and out. So just in general on offense on the road, how important is it to start fast? Then specifically kind of with this game this weekend.
Yeah, certainly, and that's something we're always preaching. And unfortunately, as you mentioned in those two games, we haven't done that. And there's been a lot of in the Vanderbilt game, I think we quickly got going, had success. You just can't dig yourself a hole, especially given the opponent a momentum in an environment like we're going to see at LSU. So it's critical. We preach it every day. We try to even set up our practice to where we do start fast, whether it's offense or defense. And, we didn't get that done the last two road games, as you mentioned. So always an emphasis on that, but really it comes back to not really, the guys are trying. It's just a matter of, doing things that you do well, going out there and executing.
Stay on that same row. Let's go to Colin.
Hey, Kellen, I'm curious what you've seen out of Elijah Pritchett at right tackle recently. It seems like from our perspective that he struggled a little bit from that position. How have you seen him kind of handle the last off week, and how comfortable do you feel about the right tackle position right now?
Yeah, I think Elijah's got a ton of potential, and a lot of things that he's grown in. There's always the areas, and at this time of the year, there's enough film on someone to where teams attack you certain ways, and whether we're talking about the tackle position or it could be anywhere, defensive back, defensive line, you put on film as a team, as an individual, the things that opponents are going to look at. And so he's continued to work hard every single day. I mean, he comes out to practice, he's competitive. I feel like his growth has been kind of proven over the year. I think there's a consistency to him that is higher than what it was at the beginning or even the middle of the season. And, that's what you're looking for. That's all you can ask in your players, is that they continue to grow, they can continue to, improve. And he's doing that. And, we'll continue to help him as coaches. That's our job.
All the way back right, Ryan.
Hey, Coach, many people believe this one on Saturday must win for Alabama. What's your approach? This is why you come to Alabama for games like this, and what's been the attitude with you going into a game where there's really not a lot of wiggle room left this season?
Yeah, and that's, you saw our response, I think, with the Missouri game, because really, that was the case there. And, I say that, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, well, why wasn't that the case when we went to Tennessee? Well, it was, it's just more experiences that you have together, the backs of the wall, there's different things that different teams respond well to. And at least for the first test, and Missouri was at home, we got off to a fast start defensively, did a nice job there, and just continued to apply pressure, I think, offensively. And once we got the field position in our favor, we kind of cracked through. But for us, it's just always going back to really the process and, the work that needs to be put in, the areas we needed to continue to improve on. And the guys, I use the word intentional a lot, whether it's here, whether it's with our team. We have to be intentional, and we got to bring that energy in order to really continue to improve, and they're doing that. And they want to make something big of this season, and it's supported through the action that you see on the practice field. You see it in just the way they're going about their business off the field. Just the details that really continue to hone in on. And it's just a matter of time, right? As the season goes on, you become more comfortable with what we're doing, whether it's our scheme or just the routine or each other. And a lot of our youth is rising up and continuing to gain more and more confidence, mixed in with the veterans that continue to bring great leadership. So I like where we're at. Unfortunately, like you said, we have less wiggle room, and our backs are to the wall, and so we're going to fight each and every day, bite, scratch, and claw, like you've never seen. And that continues on this week.
Grace in the back left.
Coach, on the other side of a bye week, what indicators are you looking for in your team that lets you know it was productive and that their mindset is in the right place for a game like LSU?
You're talking about like this week? Yeah, I think, last week and this week is a great indication. I guess this week I'm talking about yesterday's practice. Ton of energy. There was a purpose, just very deliberate in how we went out there. There's emotion and there's energy, but it's really focused on the right things. And the leaders, what I challenge our team to do is not just have the leaders that have been the leaders step up, but have at this point a team full of leaders. We can't have these freshmen aren't freshmen. The new guys that come into this program aren't just new guys anymore. This is our team, and that's been the message, but really for them to all raise their game as leaders. That means accountability for themselves, ourselves, each individually, and then also bring someone else with you. And that's been the challenge the last couple weeks, and I continue to kind of hone in on that.
All right, we're going to finish up with Tony here on the left.
What have you seen from Robbie Utes, and how big is his ability to kind of handle some of that dirty work that maybe goes unnoticed on offense?
Yeah, and he does some things on special teams too with Robbie. He's just a really versatile guy, becoming more versatile when it comes to special teams and offense. I think he's one of those guys that when you talk about the reps that you've had now in our offense and how we teach things, and just getting used to the locations that we're going to put him as I guess a tight end, but even in a fullback role, the spots that we put him all over on the field, the reps have helped him really develop and grow. And now you see him not just going out there and trying to execute what's on paper and what the play's supposed to be, but he's actually going out there and making plays. I think the first play or early in the game, we went right to him, and just like it was second nature for him, to run the route, to catch the ball, to, get vertical and, run through people like he's used to doing. And he's a guy that our team looks to because he's very just unselfish. Will do whatever it takes for our football team to be successful, and that happens through his effort, happens through his attitude. You can just see it, and he's a pleasure to have on our football team, pleasure to coach.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Okay, thank you.
Fam, what's up? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here today. That was Coach Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, and Kane Womack. As news happens, I get you covered right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I'm about to go chop up a couple different videos from this press conference today. I think the biggest piece of news is hearing about kind of the mindset and the mentality following Alabama's victory over Missouri going into this game, a critical matchup against LSU, right? I think we all know the back is against the wall against the LSU Tigers and the challenges that Garrett Nussmeier presents, along with his very talented wide receivers, along with the fact that they have a defense that can clearly get to the quarterback. I think when Coach Kalen DeBoer was talking about Elijah Pritchett, he didn't really say he was comfortable with him. He just said that you want to see him continue to grow. And then also Cole Adams out the remainder of the year. Certainly big news there regarding the Alabama Crimson Tide. I appreciate you guys being here today, right here on Bama Football on YouTube. As news happens, it got you covered every single day at 10 a.m. Central Time. That is my show time for my live shows. And then as news happens, I got you covered right here. Thank you very much for being a member on Bama Football on YouTube. I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you guys. And remember, be good people out there. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you